The Galactic Council Chamber on Prime was the most important building in the entire galaxy. It had stood for 12,000 years, built by species who had mastered space travel when humans were still living in caves. The chamber was enormous, with walls made of crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Seats rose in circles, one above another, like a giant stadium. Each seat belonged to one of the 17 founding species of the Council. These were the rulers of the galaxy, the ancient ones, the powerful ones. On this day, something unusual was happening. A new species had come to ask for membership. They called themselves humans. Ambassador Cole stood at the petitioner's podium. This podium was placed at the very bottom of the chamber, far below the seats of the council members. It was designed this way on purpose. Anyone who stood there had to look up at the council, like a child looking up at adults, understood the message clearly. He was supposed to feel small and unimportant. Was a tall man with gray hair and calm brown eyes. He wore a simple dark suit, nothing fancy, nothing trying too hard to impress. He had been chosen for this mission because he never lost his temper. No matter what anyone said to him, he remained polite and steady. Beside him stood his aide, Lieutenant Commander Price. She was younger, with red hair tied back in a neat bun. She held a tablet in her hands, ready to record everything that happened. The chamber was full. Representatives from dozens of species had come to watch the humans make their request. Most of them were curious. A few were amused. None of them were impressed. High Counselor and of the sat in the central seat, the highest and most important position in the chamber. He was a terrifying sight to human eyes. His body was covered in shimmering scales that changed color when light hit them. He had 4 arms, each one ending in clawed fingers. His face was long and narrow, with golden eyes that seemed to see everything. They had founded the council thousands of years ago, and they had never let anyone forget it. Cleared his throat and began to speak. His voice was calm and clear. It echoed through the vast chamber. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," he said, "I come before you as a representative of Earth and all human colonies. We request consideration for full membership in this council. We offer our resources, our knowledge, and our willingness to work together for peace in the galaxy." And leaned forward in his seat. When he spoke, his voice was deep and rumbling. A small device translated his words into English, but the tone needed no translation. It was the tone of someone speaking to a very stupid child. "Your species has been traveling between stars for less than 300 years, and said. They were building empires when your ancestors were still afraid of fire. They were hiding in caves, afraid of lightning. And now you come here, asking to sit among us as equals." Laughter filled the chamber. It came from every direction. The insect-like beings with hard shells and clicking mandibles made a sound like stones rattling together. The creatures made of glowing gas pulsed with bright colors that meant mockery. The small furry beings with large eyes squeaked with amusement. Did not react. His face remained calm. Beside him, hands tightened on her tablet, but she also stayed silent. "We understand that we are young," said. "That is exactly why we want to learn from those with more experience. We believe we have much to offer and much to learn." Counselor of the waved a small paw in the air. His species was known throughout the galaxy for their technology. They built the best ships, the best weapons, the best everything. They were also known for looking down on everyone else. "What could you possibly offer?" asked. "Your ships are slow and weak. Your weapons are toys. You control no important territory. You have no rare resources. You are nothing." More laughter, more mockery. Waited for it to die down before speaking again. "We offer partnership," he said. "We offer cooperation. We offer friendship." The laughter this time was the loudest yet. The word friendship seemed to be the funniest thing any of them had ever heard. And held up one of his 4 hands, and the chamber fell silent. "Friendship," he repeated, making the word sound ridiculous. How sweet, how innocent, how foolish. The council does not run on friendship, Ambassador. It runs on power, it runs on mutual benefit, it runs on the cold reality of survival. The strong survive, the weak serve or die. This is the way of the galaxy. This has always been the way. He paused, his golden eyes staring down at with something like pity. What do humans bring to this reality? Nothing. You are weak. You are ignorant. You are young. You have accomplished nothing of value. You have discovered nothing new. You have built nothing impressive. You are, in every way that matters, insignificant. Looked around the chamber. He saw the faces of beings who had lived for thousands of years. He saw their contempt, their amusement, their complete lack of respect. He thought about Earth. He thought about the 8 billion people there, hoping that today would be the day humanity joined the galactic community. He thought about all the human colonies, all the dreams, all the hard work that had brought them to this moment. "We bring hope," said simply. The chamber exploded with laughter again. Some of the delegates actually had to hold onto their seats. The clicked so hard it sounded like a rainstorm. The flashed so many colors they looked like fireworks. And waited for the noise to fade. Then he spoke in a formal voice, the voice of official business. "The Council grants humanity observer status for a probationary period of 50 standard cycles. During this time, you may watch our proceedings. You may listen to our debates. You may not vote. You may not participate in any council decisions. You may not speak unless spoken to. You will sit in the seats reserved for observers at the very back of the chamber. Is this understood?" "It is understood," said. "Good, then this matter is closed. The council has more important business to attend to." Bowed his head slightly, a gesture of respect that he did not feel. Then he turned and walked out of the chamber, followed close behind. The sound of alien laughter followed them all the way to the doors. Once they were outside, in the long corridor that led to the human shuttle, finally spoke. Her voice was tight with anger. "How can you stay so calm?" she demanded. "They treated us like dirt, they laughed at us, they called us nothing." Kept walking. His face was still calm, but noticed something in his eyes that she had never seen before. It was not anger. It was not sadness. It was something harder to name, something patient, something that was willing to wait. "Because children grow up," said quietly, "and those who laugh at them often live long enough to regret it." Did not understand what he meant. But years later, she would remember this moment and realize that Cole had seen the future more clearly than anyone else in that chamber. The humans had come asking for friendship. They had been given mockery instead. They would not forget. 20 years passed. In human time, this was a generation. Children who had been born on the day Cole made his speech were now adults with children of their own. But for the ancient species of the Galactic Council, 20 years was nothing. It was a blink of an eye. It was a moment so brief that most of them barely noticed it passing. The human delegation remained on Prime throughout those 20 years. They attended every council session. They sat in the observer seats at the back of the chamber, watching and listening and recording everything. They submitted proposals for cooperation. They offered to help with problems. They reached out diplomatically to every species that would talk to them. Almost no one would talk to them. Ambassador had replaced Cole after his retirement. She was a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and sharp blue eyes. Like she had been chosen because she never lost her temper. Like she stood at the petitioner's podium whenever she was allowed to speak, looking up at the council members who looked down at her with boredom or contempt. Had made the same offers had made, partnership, cooperation, friendship. The answers were always the same. No, not needed, not wanted, go away. But did not go away, she kept trying. When they was struck by a massive solar flare, immediately offered human assistance. The flare had knocked out power systems across the planet. Millions of were dying. Their bodies were made of gas held together by energy fields, and without power, those fields were failing. went to the council chamber and requested permission to send human ships with emergency generators. The human ships were fast. They could reach thee in days. They could save millions of lives. High Counselor and barely looked at her. The crisis is an internal matter, he said. The council will handle it through proper channels. Human technology is insufficient for biology anyway. Your offer is noted and rejected. The proper channels took 3 months. By the time council aid arrived, 12 million had died. The human ships could have saved most of them, but no one had wanted human help. Recorded everything. She sent detailed reports back to Earth. When the colonies were struck by a mysterious plague, offered human medical researchers. Human doctors had developed new techniques for fighting unknown diseases. They had equipment that could analyze any illness and suggest treatments within hours. They could help. The council refused again. Human medicine is barely capable of treating human ailments, Counselor said with a dismissive wave of his furry paw. We do not need your primitive doctors poking around in matters they cannot understand. The plague spread for 6 months before scientists finally developed a cure. By that time, 3 billion had died. 3 billion intelligent beings gone forever because the council had been too proud to accept help from humans. Recorded everything. When pirates from the Outer Rim began attacking shipping lanes, offered human naval support. Human ships had been designed for combat. Human crews were well-trained and disciplined. They could help protect merchant vessels from pirate attacks. And actually laughed out loud at this offer. Your primitive vessels would only get in the way, he said. Leave warfare to those who understand it. Go back to your observer seats and watch how real civilizations handle such matters. The pirate attacks continued for 2 years. Thousands of ships were destroyed. Millions of tons of cargo were stolen. The council eventually assembled a fleet and drove the pirates away, but only after enormous losses. Recorded everything. But while the humans watched and recorded and were rejected again and again, something else was happening. Something the council did not notice because they were too busy looking down at humans to see what humans were actually doing. Earth scientists were working. Day and night, year after year, they studied every piece of alien technology they could observe. They did not steal anything. They did not break any laws. They simply watched and learned and thought about what they saw. Then they went back to their laboratories and invented things. New things. Better things. Things that no one in the galaxy had ever imagined. Human shipyards began building new vessels. These ships looked different from anything else in the galaxy. They were sleek and elegant, with curves where other ships had angles. Their engines used principles that alien engineers could not understand. They were not as powerful as warships, not yet, but they were faster and more efficient. Human colonies spread through the galaxy. They claimed systems that no one else wanted: barren worlds, cold worlds, worlds with poisonous atmospheres or unstable stars. The council barely noticed. Let the humans have the garbage, they thought. Let them play in the dirt while the real powers control the real territory. But humans had a talent that the ancient species had forgotten. Humans could make something out of nothing. They could look at a barren rock and see a future paradise. They could take a world that everyone else had rejected and turn it into a home. Filed her reports every month. She detailed every insult, every rejection, every time the council refused human help. She noted which species occasionally showed kindness and which were always hostile. She documented everything. And she waited. One evening, after a particularly bad day in the council chamber, sat alone in her quarters aboard the human station orbiting Prime. Her proposal for a joint scientific expedition had been rejected without even being discussed, and had simply said, "Next item," as if she had not spoken at all. Her communications officer, Lieutenant Daniel Brooks, entered with a sealed message. He was a young man, fresh from Earth, still idealistic enough to be surprised by how badly the aliens treated humans. "Priority transmission from the unified Earth government," he said, handing her a tablet. Took the tablet and read the message. Then she read it again, then a third time. Her face showed nothing, but her hands shook slightly. "Lieutenant," she said quietly, "please inform the senior staff that we will be holding a meeting in 1 hour. Everyone must attend. No exceptions." "May I ask what it's about, Ambassador?" Looked out her window. She could see the lights of the prime orbital complex, the great stations and ships and habitats that house the heart of galactic civilization. For 20 years, humanity had tried to be part of this. For 20 years, they had been rejected. "The waiting is over," she said. Daniel did not understand, but he would soon. Everyone would soon. Humanity had been patient. Humanity had been polite. Humanity had offered friendship and received mockery. Now humanity was going to do something that the ancient species of the galaxy had never expected. Humanity was going to leave. Not with anger, not with threats, not with promises of revenge. Just silence. And that silence would be louder than any words could ever be. The morning session of the Galactic Council began like every other morning session for the past 12,000 years. Delegates arrived in their personal transports. Aides carried documents and data tablets. Servants brought refreshments suited to each species. The great crystal doors opened, and the most powerful beings in the galaxy took their seats. High Counselor and called the assembly to order. His voice echoed through the chamber as he read the first items on the agenda: trade disputes between thee and the, a border disagreement in the Outer Rim, requests for funding from 3 different scientific expeditions, normal business, boring business, the kind of business that had kept the galaxy running for thousands of years. No one noticed that the human observer seats were empty. 3 hours into the session, during a particularly dull debate about shipping taxes, Counselor suddenly looked toward the back of the chamber. His large eyes blinked several times. "Where are the humans today?" he asked. "I know their presence does not matter, but protocol requires us to note when observers are absent." And waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. "They are probably sulking after yesterday's rejection. You know how emotional young species can be. Send someone to check on them." An aide was dispatched to the human station. The station was located in orbit around Prime, close enough for the humans to attend council sessions, but far enough to remind them of their inferior status. The aide took a shuttle to the station, docked at the main airlock, and entered. He returned an hour later. His face was pale and his hands were shaking. "High Counselor," the aide stammered, "the station is empty." And looked at him with annoyance. "What do you mean empty?" "The humans are gone, all of them. Their ships departed during the night cycle. The station has been completely evacuated. They left nothing behind. No personal items, no equipment, nothing except this." The aide held up a small data crystal. It was a standard storage device, the kind used throughout the galaxy for messages and recordings, and took it with 2 of his hands and examined it for a moment. Then he inserted it into a slot on his council seat. A holographic image appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a human woman standing on what appeared to be the bridge of a ship. She was older, with gray hair and sharp eyes. She stood straight and calm, her hands clasped behind her back. "To the members of the Galactic Council," the woman said, "my name is Ambassador of the Unified Earth Government. I am recording this message to inform you that humanity hereby withdraws from observer status and terminates all diplomatic relations with the Council and its member species, effective immediately." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Delegates looked at each other in confusion. The holographic continued speaking. "We came to you 20 years ago asking for partnership. We offered our resources. We offered our knowledge. We offered our friendship. We asked for nothing except the chance to be part of your community. the chance to contribute, the chance to learn and grow alongside you. You rejected us. Again and again you rejected us. When we offered help, you refused it. When we suggested cooperation, you laughed at us. When we reached out our hands in friendship, you slapped them away. We watched as millions of died because you would not let us help. We watched as billions of perished because our medicine was too primitive for your standards. We watched as your shipping lanes burned because our ships were too weak to be useful. We could have saved them. We tried to save them. You would not let us. The chamber was completely silent now, even and was listening without his usual expression of bored superiority. So we are leaving, Image said, not in anger, not seeking revenge. We are simply accepting what you have told us so clearly for 20 years. You do not want us. You do not need us. We are insignificant, primitive, worthless. Very well, we will be insignificant somewhere else. As of this moment, all human territory is closed to Council traffic. No Council vessel will be permitted to enter human space. No Council citizen will be allowed on human worlds. All trade agreements are canceled. All scientific exchanges are ended. All diplomatic communications are terminated. Do not attempt to contact us. We will not respond. Do not send envoys. They will be turned away at our borders. Do not send ships. They will not be allowed to pass. You told us that the galaxy runs on power and mutual benefit. You told us that friendship is meaningless. You told us that the weak serve or die. We listened. We learned. And now we are going away to see if we can survive without you. You have made your choice. Now we are making ours. Goodbye. The hologram flickered and disappeared. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then he laughed. It was not a genuine laugh. It was too loud, too forced, too quick, but he laughed anyway. This is absurd, he said. The humans cannot simply leave. They depend on Council trade routes. Their economy will collapse within years. Their colonies will fail without access to our technology. They will be back within a decade, begging for the scraps they once refused. Perhaps we should send an envoy, said Counselor L of the. She was a tall, slender being with silver skin and large dark eyes. Her species was known for their wisdom and their careful thinking. We should at least try to understand their grievances. Perhaps there is room for reconciliation. And looked at her with something close to contempt. Reconciliation? For what? They are nothing. Let them hide in their worthless systems. Let them play their games. When their food runs out and their ships break down and their people start dying, they will come crawling back. And then we will make them pay for this insult. And if they do not come back? Elle asked quietly. Anne's golden eyes narrowed. Then they will die alone in the dark, and the galaxy will barely notice. One insignificant species more or less makes no difference. Now, can we please return to matters of actual importance? The Council moved on to other business. The debates continued. The votes were taken. The galaxy kept running as it always had. But Elle did not participate in the discussions that day. She sat in her seat and stared at the empty human observer seats at the back of the chamber. She thought about the message she had just seen. She thought about the calm certainty in his voice. She thought about all the times she had seen humans offer help and be rejected. She thought about the quiet dignity with which they had endured years of mockery and insults. And she felt something that she had not felt in a very long time. She felt afraid. Not of the humans, not of what they might do. She was afraid of what the Council had done. She was afraid that they had made a terrible mistake, a mistake that could not be undone. The humans were gone. They had left without threats, without anger, without a single word of hatred. They had simply said goodbye. And somehow, that was the most frightening thing of all. 50 years passed after the humans disappeared. At first, no one in the Council noticed their absence. The galaxy was vast, and there were always more important things to worry about. Border disputes between the great powers, economic problems in the outer colonies, Political battles in the council chamber. The humans had been so unimportant that their leaving left no visible hole. Some species made jokes about them. Where did the humans go? Who cares? They are probably dead by now, starving on their worthless rocks, paying the price for their arrogance. The jokes got fewer as the years passed. Eventually, people stopped talking about humans at all. Then the rumors started. Traders who worked the Outer Rim brought back strange stories. They spoke of human ships appearing in unclaimed systems. But these ships were different from the slow, clumsy vessels that humans had used before. These new ships were fast, incredibly fast. They could outrun anything in the galaxy. They appeared out of nowhere and vanished before anyone could get a good look at them. The Council dismissed these reports as exaggerations. Travelers loved to tell tall tales. Human ships could not possibly be that advanced. They had only been alone for 50 years. That was not enough time to make such improvements. But the reports kept coming. Explorers discovered human colonies in regions that should have been uninhabitable. Frozen worlds with temperatures cold enough to kill most species in seconds. Volcanic planets covered in rivers of molten rock. Moons orbiting gas giants with crushing gravity. The Council had surveyed these places centuries ago and marked them as worthless. No one could live there. But humans lived there. Humans built cities there. Somehow, impossibly, humans were thriving in places where they should have died within days. The Council sent observers to the borders of human space. They were told to stay outside human territory, but to watch and record everything they could. The observers returned with reports that made the Council members uncomfortable. Human territory has expanded significantly, the lead observer reported. Our best estimates suggest they now control over 800 star systems. Their population has grown to nearly 40 billion. Their industrial capacity is difficult to measure, but appears to equal or exceed that of mid-level council members. And dismissed the report with a wave of his hand. Impossible. These numbers must be wrong. Human expansion at this rate would require technology far beyond their capabilities. With respect, High Counselor, we observe their technology directly. Their ships use propulsion systems we have never seen before. Their colonies use power sources we cannot identify. Their medical technology has apparently cured diseases that still plague Council species. Propaganda, and said firmly. The humans are trying to intimidate us. They want us to be afraid, so we will invite them back. We will not fall for such obvious tricks. But the reports continued to arrive. Human agricultural methods were turning dead rocks into garden worlds. Human engineers had developed materials stronger than anything the Council had ever produced. Human scientists were publishing research papers that scholars struggled to understand. 50 years of silence, 50 years of isolation, and the insignificant, primitive humans had somehow become something else entirely. Then they came. They were not a Council species. They came from beyond the edge of the galaxy, from regions so distant that no one had ever explored them. They were raiders, conquerors, destroyers. Every few centuries they would gather their forces and sweep into civilized space, burning everything in their path. The Council had fought them before. The wars were always terrible, millions of lives lost, dozens of worlds destroyed. Each time the Council eventually pushed them back, but the cost was enormous. This time was different. This time, the invasion was the largest in recorded history. Their fleet numbered in the tens of thousands. Massive warships, each one carrying thousands of warriors. They swept through the outer rim like a fire through dry grass. Colony after colony fell before them. Species that had existed for millions of years were wiped out in days. The Council mobilized every ship they had. The great fleets of all of them gathered to face the threat. But it was not enough. The enemy was too numerous, too powerful, too relentless. World after world burned. The advance seemed unstoppable. And then they reached human space. The Council expected the humans to be destroyed. Human territory lay directly in the path of the invasion, that would sweep through and eliminate them, just as they had eliminated so many others. Perhaps it was fitting, some council members thought. The arrogant humans would finally pay for leaving the protection of civilized society. The fleet entered human space. Thousands of warships, millions of warriors, enough firepower to destroy entire civilizations. They were never seen again. 3 weeks after they entered human territory, a single human ship appeared at the edge of Council space. It was small, barely larger than a shuttle. It broadcast a simple message on all frequencies. The threat has been eliminated. Their fleet has been destroyed. There has been sterilized. They will not trouble anyone again. You are welcome. Then the ship turned and disappeared back into human space. The council chamber fell silent when this news was delivered. Delegates looked at each other in shock. That had been the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced. The council's combined fleets had barely been able to slow them down. And the humans had destroyed them, completely, in 3 weeks. No one laughed this time. No one made jokes about primitive technology or insignificant species. For the first time in anyone's memory, High Counselor N had nothing to say. Counselor L stood slowly from her seat. She was very old now, the only member of the original council still serving. She had been warning about the humans for 50 years. No one had listened. "We made a mistake," she said quietly. 50 years ago we drove away a species that wanted nothing but friendship. We mocked them. We dismissed them. We told them they were worthless. And now they have done what our combined might could not do. They have saved us all. They saved themselves, and said, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. They would have attacked them anyway. They had no choice. Perhaps, Al said, but they could have let the weaken us first. They could have waited until we were broken and desperate, then come to our rescue and demanded payment. They could have used this moment to humiliate us as we once humiliated them. She paused. Instead, they destroyed the threat and asked for nothing in return. They simply said, "You are welcome." The chamber remained silent. No one knew what to say. Far away in human space, life continued as it had for 50 years. Cities grew. Families raised children. Scientists made discoveries. Artists created beauty. The humans had built something remarkable in their isolation. Something that no one in the galaxy had expected. They had not become conquerors. They had not become tyrants. They had not become the monsters that the galaxy's fear might have created. They had simply become themselves, patient, determined, kind even when kindness was not deserved. And they were waiting to see if the galaxy was finally ready to accept what they had offered so long ago. Friendship. 100 years had passed since the humans walked out of the Galactic Council chamber. 100 years since Ambassador recorded her message and humanity disappeared into the silence of space. 100 years of wondering, waiting, and watching. The galaxy had changed during those 100 years. The balance of power had shifted in ways that everyone understood but no one openly discussed. The great species that had once ruled everything now found themselves looking over their shoulders, wondering about the quiet neighbors who had once been so easy to dismiss. Human space had grown enormous. 3,000 star systems now flew the blue and green flag of the unified Earth government. Human ships traveled routes that no other species dared to fly. Human colonies thrived on worlds that should have been impossible to inhabit. Human technology had surpassed even thee in most areas. And yet humanity remained silent. They did not threaten. They did not demand. They did not seek revenge for the 100 years of insults they had suffered. They simply existed, peaceful and powerful, waiting for something that only they understood. On this day, 100 years after the departure, a human delegation returned to the Galactic Council. The chamber had not changed much. The same crystal walls glowed with soft blue light. The same seats rose in circles toward the ceiling. The same species sat in the same positions, though the individuals had changed over the century. High Counselor and still held the central seat. He was ancient now, even by standards. His scales had faded from brilliant colors to dull gray. His four hands trembled when he moved, but his golden eyes still watched everything, and his mind was still sharp. The human delegation entered through the same doors that Cole had used a century ago. There were 5 of them, dressed in simple dark clothing that made no attempt to impress. They walked with quiet confidence, neither arrogant nor humble. Their leader was a man named Samuel Lewis. He was middle-aged, with brown hair turning gray at the temples and kind eyes that seemed to see the best in everyone. He had been chosen for this mission because he reminded people of Cole, the first human ambassador. Patient, calm, impossible to anger. Samuel walked to the petitioner's podium at the bottom of the chamber, the same podium where humans had stood 100 years ago, looking up at species who looked down at them with contempt. He did not ask for a different position. He did not demand to be treated as an equal. He simply stood there and waited. The chamber was completely full. Every species had sent their most important representatives. They all wanted to see this moment. They all wanted to understand what the humans would do now that they had become powerful beyond anyone's expectations. And cleared his throat. When he spoke, his voice was careful and measured. The arrogance that had once filled every word was gone. "Ambassador Lewis," he said, "humanity returns to the Council after a long absence." "We do," Samuel agreed. "May I ask why you have come?" Samuel looked around the chamber. He saw faces of beings who had once mocked his species. He saw the descendants of those who had called humans insignificant, primitive, worthless. He saw fear in some eyes, curiosity in others, hope in a few. 100 years ago, Samuel said, a man named Cole stood in this exact spot. He came asking for partnership. He offered humanity's friendship. He was laughed at. He was dismissed. He was told that humans were nothing. 20 years later, a woman named stood here and made the same offers. She was rejected too. Again and again, she tried. Again and again, she was told that humanity had nothing of value to contribute. So we left. We went away to find out who we were without your approval, without your permission, without your acceptance. We needed to discover our own worth since you could not see it. He paused. The chamber was completely silent. During our century of silence, we grew. We learned. We built things that our ancestors could never have imagined. We faced challenges alone and became stronger. We developed technology that surpasses anything in the galaxy. We created a civilization of 40 billion people living on 3,000 worlds. We could have returned as conquerors. Your fleets cannot match ours. Your weapons cannot stop ours. We could have demanded payment for every insult, every rejection, every life that was lost because you refused our help when we offered it freely. We could have made you kneel. Some of the delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This was what they had feared. This was why they had come, to see if humanity wanted revenge. Samuel shook his head slowly. But that is not who we are. That has never been who we are. Humans do not seek to dominate. We do not wish to rule others. We do not want servants or subjects. We want partners. We want friends. We want to build something together that is greater than anything we could build alone. That is what we offered 100 years ago. That is what we offer today. We came back not to demand what you us, but to offer again what we offered before: partnership, cooperation, friendship, the same words that made you laugh a century ago. He smiled slightly. You called us children once. Perhaps we were, but children grow up. They become adults, and wise elders know when to recognize that the children have become equals. We are willing to start again. We are willing to forget the insults, the mockery, the rejection. We are willing to pretend that the past 100 years never happened. The question is, are you? Silence filled the chamber. No one moved, no one spoke. Then slowly, Counselor L of the rose from her seat. She was incredibly old now, older than any other member of the council. She had served for over 100 years, watching and waiting for this moment. She descended from her elevated position, walking carefully down the steps that separated the counselors from the petitioners. It took her a long time. She was frail, and each step was difficult, but no one offered to help her. Everyone understood that she needed to do this herself. She reached the bottom of the chamber and walked to where Samuel stood at the podium. She looked up at him with her large, dark eyes. "I was here when your people first came," she said quietly. "I watched as we laughed at you. I said nothing. I did nothing. I was a coward." She extended her slender hand in the human style of greeting. Her fingers trembled, but her voice was steady. "I cannot speak for the council," she said, "but I can speak for myself. I am sorry for everything. And yes, we are willing to start again." Samuel took her hand gently and shook it. "Thank you," he said simply. For a moment, the two of them stood there together. An ancient alien and a human. A representative of those who had once mocked humanity and a representative of those who had once been mocked. Then one by one, other counselors began to rise. They descended from their seats and gathered around the podium. Some offered words of apology. Some simply nodded their acceptance. Some still looked uncertain or afraid. But they all came. Even an ancient and proud slowly made his way down from his central seat. He stood before Samuel and looked at him with eyes that had seen thousands of years of galactic history. "I was wrong," and said. The words seemed to cost him great effort. "Your species is not insignificant, perhaps it never was." Samuel nodded. "Perhaps not, but it does not matter anymore. What matters is what we do now." And was silent for a moment. Then he extended one of his 4 hands. Samuel took it. And in that moment, in the ancient chamber where humanity had once been laughed at and dismissed, something new began. Not a conquest, not a surrender, not revenge or domination. Simply what humans had wanted from the very beginning. Friendship. The humans had left without a word. They had returned with an offer of peace, and the galaxy, finally, was wise enough to accept it. The story of humanity's journey to the stars was just beginning, but it would no longer be a story of isolation and rejection. It would be a story of cooperation, of partnership, of species from across the galaxy working together to build something greater than any of them could build alone. It would be the story that humans had always wanted to tell. And this time, everyone was listening.